These are the spaced out conversations that fucking matter. These are what makes people genius.
But see these
closer to them.
But see these conversations. This is what I'm talking about, where you learn, and this is what changes your views on belief and makes you who you are. So listen, I know you're saying you want to learn, but this is actually where you learn. You learn as much from the book that you do from the average man. So you can take as much away from what I believe or what he believes.
Of course.
And that's what I'm trying to realize, that it actually is like we all almost have the same conscience to ourselves. How strongly you believe that you do is the same as I do.
Well,
like it's almost like it's all interconnected and all the same.
They say the smartest man in the room is the quietest man. Or the
That's
one that listens and takes it all in and doesn't say anything.
So, but explain to me. I just want to know what is your conscience to you then? So obviously there's no God, there's no this. We're here this time, and then what? There's no existence.
Well, I like sticking to reason and probability as much as possible. Yeah, well, yeah, in a way, science is limited too, but just reason, like you can come up with certain thought, and then without adding anything else, you know what I mean? So what you know is, for example, if you say there's an afterlife, that's a thought that you're adding because there's no proof that there is, but in a way there's a certain wish that there is, because it's hard for the human mind to comprehend non-existence. So it's very hard to think of something that doesn't exist, especially ourselves, and therefore but especially throughout the childhood of our civilization, like 3,000, 6,000, 50,000 years ago. Of course, there was little information, so people would comprehend the universe a certain way. Now we have a lot more factual information, and therefore it all leads to that we live on a planet that's in the middle of nowhere. Really, it's unimportant. Our planet is unimportant when it comes to our galaxy. It's in a corner that's unimportant out of many galaxies, and our life is quite insignificant in a way in a time sense. But because we live within our own consciousness, of course, we want to continue living and we want to make the best of our life. So we do tend to. We are the only animal that tends to add more to our existence. So no other animals, no other living creatures adds more to their existence with regards to afterlives or consciousness or spirits. They just react to nature. And so, but because we're in a very special situation, that we're aware that we exist and we can think and we're aware that we exist in a certain part of the universe. No one else knows that apart from the human being, that we live on a planet called Earth, and there's a sun, and there's a galaxy, and there's a universe, and so forth. So
do you think, for instance, so in a trying to say how lucky we are sort of way, so the tiger's consciousness, pure consciousness, is the same as your consciousness. It's just that you're in a human and it's in a tiger. So do we all the animals have the same consciousness? So what I'm saying is...
Well, I don't think a tiger or any other even intelligent animal like dolphins, elephants, pigs and so on, I don't think they have a capacity to reason like we do with regards to time and space. And they obviously do react to nature. They're aware of danger. They're aware of death. But I don't think they realise that their own death will be inevitable at the end of life. And I don't think they worry about whether they're going to continue living afterwards, because they don't have that part of the brain that's developed to do so. So because of that, we need to make sense of our world. And in the early stages of our civilizations, certain supernatural type thoughts, like a creator, like God, and afterlives and so forth, were a way of consoling people that this life may be temporary, but we're gonna continue. Because when they looked around, and they saw the beauty of the earth, they had to come to the conclusion that someone must have created this. Now we know how life has started and how it procreates and all the imperfections there are. So if there is a perfect creator, I can't see how he could have created something so imperfect, with wars, with children having cancer and those type of things, the usual stuff that we talk about. So when we talk about our own consciousness, in a way, that wish for continuing to live is in a way wishful thinking that helps us. If you don't have a capacity to philosophize and accept that this is the only life you have and you're going to live it to the fullest.
That's the same as saying, like what you were saying, who would create a world where there's literally parasites that they serve a purpose to eat humans from the inside of their eye outwards? It's insane, right? There's so many factors into the point where it's just like, if someone did do this, they were complete psychopaths.
I think, stepping away from the religious side, because I think we all agree that it wasn't a procreator, like it wasn't a person, but in terms of a more conscious side, where what happens to your conscience after, I mean, because we all agree, yeah, okay, there wasn't a God, the world's too hectic, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I believe in a creator.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, I don't know if it was someone or something, but I believe there was a reason that it started. I don't know why I believe in that. That's just what I go to it might just be like to clarify that distant or disconnection from that understanding. However, that's just the way that I sort of think about it.
And that's what we call faith, for example. That's what we call faith, which is different to reasoning. For example, in my worldview, there may well be a creator. I might be wrong, of course, because I only have my perspective. So when I was born, I'm limited by what I see and everything that affects me. So I'm limited with my perspective at the time I live. So of course, all I can see is that all my conclusions only arise from my very, very, very limited perspective. So I may be wrong, but I don't. There may well be a creator, but I don't need, in order to make sense of the world, of what it is now, the world that we know of. I don't need the creator to make sense of that world. The knowledge I have through science and through philosophy, through physics, through cosmology, astronomy, and other subjects gives me a pretty good explanation of why and how we exist. So the creator may have existed, but it'll be an added thing. It doesn't really add to my understanding of the world at all.
And that's the great part about having that education, because a lot of people don't have that, and that's what separates you from, I guess, an average knowledge, is the fact that you have all this information that you've sort
built
of
together
absorbed
over learning, over years,
and also the things that you've taken in and discarded, that what you believe in and what you don't, and all that sort of stuff. And that's what separates you from that average knowledge, is because you have such a better understanding than myself or Seb in that respect.
Yeah. And I think it's so much. I think it's. I'm just trying to be economical, I suppose. That in order to have an explanation, you need to discard things that don't add to that explanation. I mean, there was a guy called Occam, and he had, we call it Occam's razor, that if you have two explanations, you always pick the simplest one. And that always works in science, in mathematics and so forth. So in mathematics, you want to you've got a formula, you want to get to a result. You usually pick the one that's simplest and the one that's going to get you there. So in an understanding of the world, that's the way I look at it. Not because I've got more knowledge, but I just try not to add. But then again, some other person decides, and sometimes very educated people, that there is a creator. And not only that there's a creator, but that creator is also interested in what I do and what I think about. So that's a very different thing. So there's theists that believe that there's a God that intervenes in human affairs, and then there's deists that believe that God created the world but doesn't really intervene because he's not interested in our affairs. So whilst there could be a God that created the world, because there may well be, no one will ever know unless, once we die we find out, I suppose. But in my view of the world, it all makes sense without that. I could add that if I wish, but it doesn't really add to the explanation of why we're here, how we're here, and how I should live my life. That's all. But it's not due to knowledge or education. I think it's just I think for me personally, it's just discarding things that don't add to that explanation.
I got nothing to add. I said everything out there.
I
think you killed it. That should go on your podcast, but
the way that and that's the beautiful thing about belief and cultures that bring that to the table is the fact that, for instance, a Muslim culture is insane, and from an outsider perspective, they do certain things their way, which to the average person or a different culture is insane. And you, to the point where you'd feel like I could never do that or whatever. But that's just part of their culture.
It's funny
and
how
they
much
do that.
Each person believes their own beliefs, how they're brought up.
And that's
I'm
great.
trying to say, the same way we do to ourselves, how much lifestyle influenced is on...
And personally, the way that I view it is that's the way that they've dealt with death. Because that's the hardest part of life, right? Is seeing someone that you love pass on. So the way that anyone in a natural sense would be like, well, they're better off now, right? That's the best coping mechanism. Is this? It's the same as like if you stub your toe or something like that. It happened for a reason, or this. I'm going through the worst part of my life, but it's happening for a reason. It's all about
justification.
Justification and
making
belief.
Something that makes you feel better why it happened.
That's right. It's just a coping mechanism to make you feel better in that time. And it's great. I feel like that's what religion was built on, just to sort of soften that blow of the crappy shit in life. Do you know what I mean? And everything happening for a reason. And when your loved ones pass on, they're going somewhere that's better than here. Like they struggled or they had cancer and they just battled. Like their whole life is just an insane battle. Same as karma, right? Like you go through just a shit week, and then next week's mad, and you're like, yeah, but the reason why this week's mad is because of last week was shit, and that's your justification for basking in that glory of having everything. Do you know what I mean?
Plus, you've come off a bad week, so that new week seems better.
Yeah, that's right. It would probably wouldn't have anything to do with it. However, it just makes you feel better and warmer to think there's a reason for this, and I deserve this. Because you sort of feel like an asshole by saying, yeah, I deserve this. Do you mean I need a break? I had a shit week. Because you're only seeing life through your eyes. The person next to you go home every day and your missus might have had a shit day. However, you had a shit day and you can't sort of comprehend their day, if that makes sense. Like you're just thinking in your own head, but I had a shit day, so I don't really give a fuck what anyone else is doing. I just want to chill the fuck out. And that's the beautiful thing about women is that they so accept that part. They're just like, yeah.
Well, that's why they're here.
That's mad, right? Like they're so nurturing. Like women, they're so nurturing, and guys are so. I just find it's weird.
We couldn't do what they do. No way.
Absolutely not. And the reason why, like for me, when Oakland was born, I took 2 weeks off, and that's the only thing I wanted to wake up to, go to sleep to, everything like that. Like it was just, that's my world. And then I went back to work, and the first week was it was so hard, and to the point where I'm driving to work and stuff like that, nearly tearing up.
Well, that's why we're really brought here. And from that transition.
But that's the thing. That's the difference between men and women, is that, especially with kids, is that we have that disconnection. And I feel like we could, as men or women or whatever, as human beings, if you kept that connection from birth, it would be easy. So you could handle all those situations that the mum deals with because you held that connection since birth. Do you know what I mean? To the point, like that's what the guys go to work, and it's a big thing for men to provide for the family, and it's to the point where you can't even talk about it to other men, and it's a big thing if a guy's struggling, like to pay the bills, or they're going through something, or
no one says anything.
They don't want to go. No one says shit.
When the women's struggling, it's always
and everyone
how
thinks.
hard it is.
Everyone thinks. Every dude out there. Every single guy.
Trouble tomorrow for so many reasons.
Every single guy thinks, I can do this myself. I'm a man. I'll get through it. I've done it before. Blah blah blah. That's such a weak way to think. If you're strong enough to turn around to someone and say, mate, I need help. I'm struggling. That is such a stronger point for me. Like if someone came to me and said, I'm struggling, I'm having a hard time just everyday life. Like I find it hard to provide for my family. It's a big deal. That's massive. As a man, that should be the type of thing to be like, that's what makes a man. Instead of the fact of being like, I can handle it myself, I'm providing for my family.
Very true. What do you think in conclusion? What do you reckon, Carla? What do you reckon?
Yeah, look,
that's going
just going back to
the. He's just going back. He could go put that on his podcast.
Just going back to the consolation part. That's wonderful, and that's what it should be about, right?
That's my suicide.
But that's what.
You're right, 100%.
But religious people don't realize that it's just consolation. You're saying it's consolation. So how wonderful to tell a child, look, Grandma 100%. Now is with Granddad in heaven.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you grow up, right?
It's a beautiful perspective.
And there was Santa Claus and there was these things. You grow up and then you face the world, or you should anyway, try to. There. But if you know it's a consolation, right, that's fine. Then you don't need to go out and try to convert people into your way of thinking, because all you know is that this helps you. But that's not the case. The case is that people think that they're right, and either they try to make other people believe what they think because it's a mirror to their own stupidity a lot of the time. And so, or then it's also related to morality. So if you have a view of the world a certain way, that means you might be a good person. So it's or not.
Well, it's Christianity or Catholic or whatever.
If we all
created law, right?
Well, if we all agreed that it's just a consolation, that's wonderful. Each one has the problem doesn't arise. The problem arises with extremism, which has been throughout the history of our civilization, has plagued us with wars usually started due to different belief systems. Not respecting the other person. And that's the problem with faith, and not only religious faith, but any type of faith.
100%.
So your view is perfect. It's a consolation for you. You adopt it as a child. You take it as an adult. You decide not to dump it as an adult. You take it, but you know it's a consolation. That's all it is. It's a belief system from your limited perspective, and then you respect someone else when they have it. But most people throughout history and now don't have that idea. They don't realise that their perspective is just a perspective. So you can't, when you start a debate with someone that believes they are right, you can never argue, because what you're doing is
just like us three arguing. It's your own, how much you believe it against each other.
That's right.
There's no right or wrong. It's just what you believe, and which we can never prove.
But most people don't think that way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
we're more
that's
rational.
The problem. That's the problem with faith, and that's why reason.
See, the difference is that's right.
Well, reason doesn't have that problem.
And the thing is, there wouldn't have been a war if everyone thought like us.
Yeah,
the fact that your rationality, what you believe is what I believe. If everyone believed that, everyone's been influenced through whether it's their lifestyle or whatever gives them satisfaction, then you'd realize, okay, that person believes that for that. I believe that for this. Why would there ever be a drama?
Well, there wouldn't be a drama.
And you can't prove it. So why would you be... Anyway.
There wouldn't be a drama because the problem with beliefs is that people want to be right. And so whether it affects them or not, they still want to impose their thoughts onto other people. And that's what makes people narrow-minded. And what we need is more broad-minded people. And not only religiously, but also in other areas of life. But that will change eventually. Definitely not in my lifetime.
Like there's different sectors of science that sort of rebuttal the other side of science. Do you know what I mean? So, and they're always building off that, and then one side will be right and one side will be wrong, and then that's sort of how it works. The thing with belief for me is I really adore science, and beliefs and cultures and things like that, and I wish I had that to the point
that's
where
why studying philosophy would actually be good.
But that's the thing about beliefs. They feel like they have the answers. So I feel like
minded because they don't search externally from that.
They
learn this, but that's what they've learned. But rather than say, okay, what around that? What are they really? What's the reason that's true? You know, they're so pigeonholed into that.
And at the same, I completely agree with that. But imagine if you felt that way, and you saw a loved one stray off that path, and in your mind you had all the answers to get to where everyone wants to be in their mindset. Do you know what I mean? So they want to help these people, but at the same time they're just plugging their beliefs. And that's the thing that frustrates everyone. And that's the biggest thing about religion is it's all the same. Realistically, it's all the same thing. 100%. They're all pushing the same product. But it's like having a favorite team of soccer.
Best way to put it.
That's what it is.
We've all got our beliefs, but there's no really religion. It's belief turned into business. That's what religion is. It's our beliefs put into a brand and a name, and then making other people do that and believe that, and then it's just monopolized. It's just beliefs turned into business.
Yeah. Well, it is changing. Obviously, we couldn't have had this conversation 100 years ago because we would have burnt to the stake. So it is changing. You will, like I was about to say before, in my lifetime, definitely not. Probably not in your two lifetimes because you're younger than me. But eventually, we will come to a society where a civilization where less foundation and attachment to supernatural belief will because people are going to be more educated and be allowed to think freely. So a lot of our courageous free thinkers from the past, they were quite courageous in a way. Most of them.
In time as well,
they realized this was wrong, and then they had, unless you're like Galileo, then you realize that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, and then you decided to take a step back for your own life. You know what I mean?
Remembered in history, though, the people that stood up for something that was completely different, people that stood up for something that's completely different to what was the standard, they're the people that everyone remembers.
Isn't it funny now that all these people, like we say in the past, had no idea, they believed this, and this one person changed, then they believe something else. And it's funny how we think that it stops here. Like how egotistical we are as humanity to think.
Well, it doesn't stop here. There's a lot more.
Yeah, that's right. And how we think we know. Oh yeah, like even how you say, or we talk about consciousness, and oh my God, they thought that the consciousness was going to be reincarnated, or they might say what you think, and they say, oh my God, they thought consciousness was nothing, and you finish, how do they think that? And then one day, say they do figure it out, which not to that extent, it's probably the hardest thing to ever figure out, but it's funny how how egotistical humanity is, that we think the buck stops here, because 1,000 years ago, that's what they thought.
Yeah, of course. Well, the thing...
That's true. No, of course not. That's what I'm trying to say. We've got no idea.
Of course, we're still progressing, but that's why still reason and science is still the best way.
You
because
could be famous in 1,000 years.
Maybe.
People talking in
but what good is it going to be to me then, I suppose? Well, the thing is that with supernatural belief and through religion and so forth, there's no progress because you stick to old books and so forth, and you have to stick it to tea. With science and reason and enlightenment, there is always a progress. So people keep adding and adding. And of course, in 100 years' time, we're going to be quite primitive thinking, of course. And so someone like Aristotle, even though he was a very smart man, I have a 12-year-old son that knows a lot more about the cosmos than Aristotle knew. Even at 12, even at 8. An 8-year-old kid today knows a lot more than what those great thinkers know. Just
Years and
about
years of
the
knowledge,
sun,
yeah.
just about our galaxy, just about microbiology. We know about why people actually die of certain things because we have the microscope and the telescope. So the important thing is that if you wish to have your own belief, it's a belief that has to work for you. But you have to understand from the starting point that it's only your perspective. Take it on board and respect others. Done.
Done.
Yeah.
Closing statement.
Yeah.
Anything? Done.